Alright, hello everybody. My name is Master Chen.
I'm Zenify.
And you are watching or listening to Mental Overflow.
You almost said it.
I know. Sorry, I'm it's a Monday, okay?
Yeah.
I'm getting there. This is episode 8 of Mental Overflow. This particular podcast focuses on social engineering, psychology, maybe a little bit of automation, but we really focus on that side of the hacker umbrella, I guess you could say. So we are in episode 8, and we will jump into a little bit about what we're talking about in just a second. But really quick, I want to say, thank you to you, Zenify. Thank you to Mindless, because he's been a great help on the back end, behind the scenes. So I just want to say thank you to him. And thank you to everybody who is watching us or has been watching us. We still have a couple of things to work through. Yeah. I say this every episode. I need to get Patreon locked down.
Yeah, Patreon.
And a couple of things.
We need to not be an egg or whatever on Twitter.
Yes, I need... I could ask later.
So, yeah.
But yeah. So we're building ourselves up. And that's, the 8th episode, it's not really... We haven't been doing this for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to continue in the positive direction that we're going. And we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So wait, where are we?
As far as...
Here.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks. We are recording from Sin Shop, the Las Vegas Valley Hackerspace. The address is 1075 American Pacific Drive, Suite C in Henderson, Nevada. As I say always, we are still the Las Vegas Valley Hackerspace. We do a whole bunch of stuff here. We have woodworking and metalworking in the back. Mm-hmm. We've got classes on, really anything.
Yeah.
Crafting, sewing, lockpicking, which I will be there in March this time.
Yeah.
Good. Mm-hmm. And then we have another podcast that we do Friday nights here. We have Gray Noise, and we do that Friday nights. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on here at this hackerspace, and we want to keep that going. We want to keep doing things, making things.
Keep doing the do.
So, okay, episode 8. We're talking today about lie detection, and I don't mean like hooking yourself up with electrodes or, really being very technical or technology-driven about lie detection. I'm talking about things that you can do when you meet somebody, like things you can do as you're interacting with them on the spot. Okay, I am not a professional lie detector by trade. Yeah. I will say that my experience has not led me the wrong way when it comes to really detecting these kinds of things. And I'll share some sources with you that I've found along the way, and then I'll talk about my experience, and I think, Zenify, you have a couple of stories or a story that you might want to share too. I've always been fascinating. Well, I am a fascinating person, but no, I've always been fascinated with lying or deception, because a lot of people don't admit that deception is part of like a daily routine. Yeah. If you think about it, lying yourself out of a meeting or lying out of getting through like some sort of responsibility. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. It's just human nature. And so there's a book, and I do apologize because I don't know the author, but the book is called Why We Lie. So we might want to fact check that, but it's Why We Lie. I don't know the author's name, but it's a digest size book. It was black with white writing on the front of it. And a family member of mine actually got that book years ago. And I read it pretty quickly, and the main idea behind the book was Why We Lie. Of course, that's the name of that's the title of the book.
It.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah, Why We Lie: The Science Behind Our Deceptive Ways, or The Evolutionary Roots of Deception.
Is it the book that I described though, with the white text?
It's black with white text.
Okay, perfect.
The author is D.L. Smith.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that sounds familiar, and I can confirm that before we share the link. So again, the book is called Why We Lie. Zenify just fact check that for me. The main takeaway from that book is that there are 3 different reasons we lie, and the author refers to those 3 reasons as shit. So you have elephant shit, you have horse shit, and you have bullshit. And I can't remember exactly which type of lie goes to which type of shit, but those are the 3 types of big lies, or 3 types of lies, and those are the 3 types of shit. Okay, so you lie for these 3 main reasons, is essentially what the book is about. Okay, you lie to protect yourself, you lie to protect somebody else, somebody you know, or you lie for reasons of grandiosity, meaning Like you lie to build yourself up to something that you know you're really not, like a stature that you're not quite there yet, but you know, the whole faking it till you make it, that would be considered a lie. And I think that one is elephant shit. Or it could be bullshit. I don't know. I have to check. But those are the 3 types of lies.
What you're saying could be bullshit.
Exactly. But those are 3 types of shit, 3 types of lies. And that's from that book. Okay, so again, really quick review. You're lying to protect yourself, you're lying to protect others, or you're lying for reasons of grandiosity.
Yeah,
or,
interesting.
So that was my really big takeaway from that book, and I found that amazing. And it's always been something that is in the back of my mind when we're talking about social engineering. Either we're social engineering somebody, or somebody's trying to social engineer us. And I'm thinking about that. Of course, I keep that in the back of my mind. Okay, well, what type of shit is this? Are you lying to protect yourself? Are you lying to protect somebody, or are you lying to just lie, right? Just to make something of yourself that you're not, right? So, and that brings me to another book, which was Mind Manipulation. And I've referenced that before in the podcast. That book was, again, his name is funny, so you'll remember it, Dr. Ha Ha Lung.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay, so I read this book before I read Chris Hadnagy's Social Engineering, the Art of Human Hacking.
Yeah.
And in Mind Manipulation, they had a diagram and everything talking about looking left. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
In a movie.
Right.
Quote.
So the idea behind it is that people who are lying, if you're looking at them directly, if they look right, they are trying to remember from history, remembering things that have happened to them, pulling from past experience, or pulling from prior knowledge. So if they look right, that's where they're pulling from. Now, if they look left while they're trying to recall something, that's usually associated with memory, or no, I'm sorry, not memory, imagination, or fibbing, because you're pulling from the creative side of I don't know if it's the whole right or left brain type of thing, but I think it's more of just where you associate your memories. You're either remembering something that has actually happened, or you're pulling from your imagination of what could have happened. So the old school of thought, and I call it the old school of thought because in my experience, I haven't found that it's always been looking left or looking right.
Yeah.
And some of the caveats were like, well, it depends on if the person is right hand or left hand dominant. I've also found that not to be the case. So that's the part that becomes a little bit unreliable, at least in my experience. So the way I do it is I build like a baseline type of questioning. Like, so for instance, if I'm looking at you and I'm asking you questions, and I say, okay, well, Zenify, have you ever been to Hawaii?
No.
Okay, well, I have, but you haven't, right? Now, can you describe it to me?
It's like several islands in the ocean.
Okay, so when I ask you that, you start to look to your left and down. You see what I'm saying? So I know that you're pulling from imagination or maybe something that you've seen before, but you haven't really experienced that, okay?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to New York?
No.
Okay. So describe it for me.
Yeah.
See, now you're looking to the left again.
I was like consciously thinking about it too.
So again, I ask these baseline questions, okay, because I've found that the whole looking left or looking right thing, it really is kind of not subjective, but it's a per case basis. I could ask the same question to other people we know, and they might look the other way for recalling imagination or recalling memory. So I ask baseline questions to really kind of establish where they look for their imagination. So when it comes to lie detection, it's not a matter of looking left or looking right. Establish the baseline by asking these probing questions, and then from then on, now we can start to pick apart if you're lying or not.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, how long have you been in IT?
Like a long time. I don't know, like 5 years.
Okay, you guess about 5 years?
Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite aspect of the field?
Security.
Okay, so your eyes kind of veered off to your right.
Yeah.
So I know that when I know you probably can't see it on the TV, or on the TV, on the tubes, on the YouTube or on your screen. You probably can't see where I'm looking at his eyes, but you can kind of see a shift to your right side. So I'm starting to kind of figure out which way you're looking for recalling of memories versus, Zenify. How long do you think you and I have been friends?
2-3 years.
See, now you're really trying to look
Yeah.
at me.
Yeah.
You're really trying to... but that's actually going to go into my next point, though.
Okay.
That's going to go into my next point.
So then, well, real quick. So a movie that I don't know if you've seen, it's called Lucky Number 11.
I think I've seen it. The title sounds familiar.
In the very beginning of the movie, Bruce Willis's character actually says to just a side character-ish, he says, while everybody's looking right, and he points to the right, so the guy looks right real quick, and he says, but you are looking left, and then he looks left, and then a major plot point happens. Why did he say... I'm still trying to think of why he said it. It's like, while everybody's looking right, you're the one that looks left. Is that like more of a basis, like everyone's following a path that they know, but you're the one looking left because of imagination? Like, that's kind of how I'm trying to interpret that quote.
Right. I'll really have to look at that movie.
The scene.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that scene to understand if that's kind of like on the same line as this. Maybe. Yeah. But again, I have to look at the movie. Yeah. But I think it might be. I have to.
It just that's what I'm trying to recall. Like what? Because before I just took that movie quote as just like a fuck off quote. But now that you're telling me about this like right left stuff, I'm like, oh shit, did that actually mean something?
No. This is actually in quite a few books. So it is in mind manipulation. I believe it's also in social engineering, the art of human hacking. Yeah. It is also mentioned in there was a series called Lie to Me. It was on CBS. You love that. So I think it was actually referenced in that show too. Oh man, but I think now again, this is personal experience. I'm not a professional lie detector or a professional interrogator, but from my experience, when I ask these questions, I've noticed that when the person is pulling from imagination, it's not a static, automatic, they look left. It's really dependent upon the individual. So I have to ask these probing questions before I really get into the meat of things.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like situations where I would actually, because I'm interested in doing that to people. But in your case, like right now, like this case, I'm aware of what you're doing, even though I'm still doing it. I guess I'm just trying to think of a way to almost obviously social engineer like my coworker, but not make it seem obvious. Like I'm actually probing for questions, getting those baselines, and then asking additional questions without it seeming obvious. Right. That's what I'm thinking about right now. I guess I just have to practice or know.
Right. And this whole... I wanted to open up with looking left and looking right just because I found this to be most interesting. Yeah. But that's just one of the aspects of what I do to kind of determine if somebody's lying to me or not. Yeah. Right. So another thing that I like to do is, of course, we look at body language. I know that you've read what everybody is saying, and I'm pretty sure that they reference it in there. There's several references as far as body language and deception. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that you want to look to when you're conversing with somebody. Yeah. But another thing that I like to do is if somebody's telling me this story, and like, let's say I'm not buying it, if somebody's telling me this story, I usually feign like I'm losing my hearing or like I didn't quite catch that last line. And usually when I catch them at a good point where I say, hey, can you repeat that really quick? I didn't quite catch that last part of the story or that last thing that you said. If they repeat it, and there's a little bit of a quiver, like they're not confident in what they said twice, that's a big red flag for me. And so I use that to my advantage. I'll fake like I couldn't hear him, and that seems to really help me when it comes to feeling that there,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that seems to work for me. So now you have a story for me.
Yeah. So
now that I'm asking you, now that I'm telling you these things,
so it's about lie detection. It probably was like 2006 or 2007. My aunt, she was living at my house, the house that I'm currently living in. She asked, she said...
See? Freeze. What? You're looking to your right.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're recalling memory.
Oh, yeah.
So, instead of looking to your left when you're faking. Yeah. Now, hey, you're a textbook case. You look to the left when you're lying. Oh. You look to the right when you're not.
Yeah.
But... just to go back really quick, I found that it's a per case basis.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
but now that I know,
it's definitely a real memory. Yeah. So we have friends in law enforcement, and she thought I cut some of her fabric. She builds quilts and stuff. So she's like, "Why'd you cut all this fabric?" And I'm like, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, lady." So she actually contacted one of our law enforcement buddies, brought over the whole lie detection system to our house, and put me under lie detection because she could have swore I was going to do that. I passed. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, oh. She didn't even say sorry. And she wasted this officer's time.
And probably,
Yeah.
That's
Like, that's actual resources. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So that was just an interesting little... That happened, like, over 10 years ago. But it was ridiculous. I was just like...
Well, I was going to say, could you remember which way you were looking or what kind of... You probably can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember... No, I can't. All I remember is sitting in my living room, pretty much, and he just, like, had the things on my finger and, like, the other bullshit, and he just had the little... I mean, I was more nervous with the fact that he's, like, marking shit, because it was the old paper one.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're newer or what they do now.
Well, as far as I know, with the lie detection, with like...
The paper roll?
With equipment and everything, where they're taking a baseline,
Yeah.
They'll ask you baseline questions that you know the answer to because they know you're nervous.
And he asked me, like, baseline questions about my house. So first it was like, what's your name?
Yeah, right.
Where were you born? Is there a pool in your backyard? Obviously, when he walked in the door, he saw the fucking pool in the backyard.
Yeah. These are baseline questions.
Yeah.
So kind of like how I asked you if you've ever been to New York or if you've ever been to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Those are my baseline questions to watch your eye movement and to watch your body language.
Okay.
Remember, I'm doing this without a machine.
Yeah.
Okay. So with lie detection, you're going to have those baseline questions. But a lot of people, when they're hooked up to these machines, they are already nervous. So that the machine takes that into account.
Yeah. And I was like fucking 13. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm so scared.
And like I've heard of ways, and this is probably more Hollywood. I'm not sure, but you see ways like in Ocean's 13, I think had an example of like the dude having a thumbtack in his shoe for a job interview
during the baselines. He would
so he pressed down onto the thumbtack or whatever was in his shoe, so that he gets his heart rate up and there's a little bit of sweat, and so as far as beating a lie detector test, that's not what we're going to cover on today's episode. I just wanted to kind of cover what I do as kind of like a impromptu lie detector. Like if I start to sense bullshit or one of the other types of shit, I'll really hone that in and be like, okay, well, and then take a look at these, the way they look, their body language, and if I can time it right, can you repeat that? I didn't get that last part. And if they quiver, that's a big red flag for me.
There's a lot of shits.
We'll have to put that in the link.
Bullshit, horse shit, chicken shit, bat shit.
Okay, well, those are the three that is that in the book, or
no, this is on just a word reference form for language.
Okay, yeah, because the three
dog shit, whale shit. There's a lot of shits, dude.
Well, all right. Not all of those shits were covered in that book.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, that's kind of all I wanted to talk about in this episode. So, Zenify, do you have anything to add?
No. I'm going to look at those different shits after this.
Awesome. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Mental Overflow. Again, you can get and contact us. I'm at Chenbox, CHENB0X on most of the social media.
I'm at Zenify_EXE on Twitter. And I'm pretty much Zenify everywhere else. Twitter didn't give me my main handle.
Right, and we do have at Mental Overflow on Twitter as well. So we are looking for sponsors. We are looking for people who just want to support us in any way that you can. So there will be links. There will be ways to do that coming here shortly. So again, thank you for watching Mental Overflow, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.